exactly 8:30 to order. We're going to start our meeting as usual by Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Evans is going to us.
Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. Welcome to Duchesne, Utah. Gateway to Uinta Basin and the home of the Utah's black gold. Oil, that is, my friends. And welcome, all of you, all the mayors, commissioners, city council members. We're thankful for you here with us today. Just going to give you a little bit of background about the Duchesne in case the mayor forgets to tell you. It was established in 1905. Originally was named Dora, believe it or not, after A.M. Murdoch's baby daughter. But then later on, of course, they decided to change to Theodore after the President of the United States. Then they realized there's a next door town by the name of Roosevelt. So they figured that's going to cause confusion. They named it Duchesne after the River Duchesne River. And also, if I remember, said that after the Mother Teresa, Duchesne, founder of the School of Sacred Heart near St. Louis, Missouri. So that's your community information for that. By way of tradition, Mayor, we give the host mayors 5 minutes to come and talk to you about us and welcome home and State of the Union, whatever you want to say. 5 minutes, Mayor.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's wonderful that you're here. We'd like to see all of our state agencies, come and visit us. Sometimes we feel like the Wasatch Front is the only place that you see in your vision. All the money is spent there, but we're glad that you took a minute and come here, have this meeting. It means a lot to us to actually, be in the vision of what happened out there. Little correction to your narrative is that we lived. When Duchesne was created, 1905 was when the reservation was opened up to homesteading. Duchesne wasn't open until 1917. But when the President of the United States had this as a federal town site, which is in the middle of the reservation, which causes some of the contention which we have with our tribe in Fort Duchesne. Well, that's a big part of the history, and you guys know that because of the problems that UDOT has coming through the basin. So that's one of the key issues that we have here in Duchesne is our friendship with the tribal partnership and with UDOT because it means so much to us. But thank you for coming.
Thank
And welcome on your.
Where was Father when the Mingus?
Yeah, Escalante.
Yeah, Escalante. Yeah, he came through.
They came over and camped right here, did they?
Yes. Yeah, and there's a monument. There was a monument my whole life. When we moved it over here, it was on the corner here when Highway 40 went down the old river, new Highway 40, 1967. The vision of UDOT seemed to change very wise. So, yeah.
Well, Mayor, we'll come often if you can just build 2 more restaurants in the town so we have places to go to eat.
Well, you probably know by sitting on the CIB, the Community Impact Board, that our city has been impacted most, like anything else. But that money flows elsewhere instead of coming back to us. So just a little caution on the CIB that we would like to see some changes the way that money is put out.
I've always fought for these communities.
You have. Very nice to hear your voice.
14 counties of the southern Utah is in my heart every time, and I fight after. But I'm fighting against 11 more commissioners and the board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, one more information. Yesterday, I went up there to Town of Helper to meet Mayor, and because that town has really flourished too. They have done a marvelous job after 2 years there, if you remember. And it is just beautiful to see more of the lights on in the stores. The streets that have the parked cars and people are walking in the sidewalks. That CIB made their arrangements to build those. And if you see in the future TV series by the name of Dusty Bluff, it is made in Helper, Utah. They were doing it yesterday, and you may see me in as an extra. Now it's time to introduce our commission and our UDOT family. So we're going to go introduction to my left. Please state your name and your jurisdiction.
Thank you. I'm Rhonda Menlo, and I represent Region 1, Northern Utah, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Jim Evans, Commissioner, and I represent this is part of Region 3, so it's good to be here with you today, and every chance I get to come out with Rob and his team and learn more about this region is wonderful, so thank you.
Kevin Van Tassel, Commissioner at Large for the state of Utah. I live in Vernal. Most of you I know, and we've been around, and it's good to be in Duchesne today.
Commissioner Law, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Donna Law. I'm Commissioner at Large. My home is in Cedar City, where I work at Southern Utah University, and we are celebrating homecoming. So I'm sorry I'm not there with you, but if you would all, before the end of the meeting, at some point in time, say something like, "Go T-Birds," we'd love a football win, and your support in gaining such would be great. It's great to be here, even in this, let me say it this way. I appreciate that we can participate online.
Thank you. And my name is Nagi Zenadi from sunny St. George. I'm delighted to be here with you. We would like to excuse Commissioner Natalie Gardner and Bill Kramer. Now let us start with UDOT family. Carlos, would you please start us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carlos Braceras, Utah Department of Transportation Director. Do you want to go to Heather next? And then
Yes, please.
Heather Barkle, Commissioner Assistant.
Ben Hewitt, Deputy Director.
Lisa Wilson, Deputy Director.
Tiffany, let's do that group and then come back over here.
Tiffany Pocock, Program Development Director.
Jack Vantura, Director, Trails and Transit.
Larry Montoya, I'm a Region 3 Project Manager responsible for projects in the basin.
Yeah.
I'm Carla Neal.
Oh.
Peter Aslak with Policy and Legislative Affairs. Lee Felder, Policy and Legislative Affairs.
Victor Rodway, Region 1 Director. Jordan Lee, Technology and Innovation.
Marianne Noble, Technology and Innovation.
I'm Bob Kelly, I'm STIP Coordinator. Ivan Carl, Financial Program.
Kirk Thornock, Region 4 Deputy Director.
Kendall Durante, Region 2 Program Manager.
Robert Stewart, Region 2 Director.
Robert Miles, Traffic Safety. Troy Peterson, Operations.
See a couple of retirees there, but
I think we're up to you now. Wyatt Woolley, Communications to Region 3. Eric Grasband, Region 3 Planning.
Matt Parker, Region 3 Program Manager.
Rob Clayton, Region 3 Director.
Thank you. And I would like to also recognize and welcome our federal partner, Ivan Moreno of Region Mendel. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And again, thank you, Rob and Region 3 for the wonderful tour we had yesterday. It was really educational, especially Justin from the shed manager. So please thank him for us. He was really good education instructor. And thank you, Heather, for that beautiful, delicious meal in this town that you provided. Mayor, if you want anybody to come to town and ask for kind of places to go eat, call Heather, and she'll provide any service for you. Okay, now we're going to start going for the public comment and local area presentation, sorry, for the Region 3. So Rob was coming forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I enjoyed our time together yesterday. Want to the focus of this local area presentation obviously is this area of the basin, the Duchesne area, and we really have a strong history of working together and partnering. There's some of our county commissioners here today that we know well and work with on a regular basis. We've solved transportation challenges together, and we'll continue to do that. I wanted to mention one of the accomplishments that started actually long before I got here was the department worked with the entities here in the basin to put together a plan for US 40. and to prioritize the needs on 40. And that was roughly 10 years ago. And we've been doing those projects on that list since that time. We've added quite a few passing lanes and done safety improvements along the corridor, and I think it's made a real difference. The county commissioners and stakeholders came and said, why don't you update that study? Because we have made quite a bit of progress on that prioritized list. And as you heard yesterday, things are changing. So we did that. We embarked on that. And we went through and talked to all the stakeholders and collected all the input, identified all of the issues along the corridor, and were able to put a new plan together that considered capacity improvements, intersection improvements, safety improvements, and prioritize those. And it was a comprehensive effort. What happened? Oh, okay. Comprehensive effort that identified projects all the way from Heber to the border of Colorado. And we feel really strongly that we understand the issues and the challenges on this corridor, and that we're prepared to address those in a prioritized manner in a way that would maximize the use of available funds. And this has been incorporated into the long-range plan for the rural area. There's a link there at the bottom of that and your presentations if you're interested in exploring that a little bit further. As we heard yesterday, in the time that it took us to complete that study that I just talked about, there's new emerging issues, and these the enhanced trucking that's surrounding the oil production is changing in a way that's unprecedented, and it's creating problems. We have operational issues with the number of trucks that are making turns. We have passing issues in the canyon, as you heard yesterday. There's winter operation problems that Justin talked about, and we have a slew of pavement issues up there. One of the problems that you can see in that bottom picture, and it's in a lot of places up near the top. The trucks are long and they have the pup, and when they go around the corners, the pups will track off of the pavement, and the pressure on the edge of the asphalt, every time that happens, it breaks it apart. And the narrow shoulders that we have are being destroyed, and it didn't take very long for that to start to really be an issue. So the money that the legislature set aside and that you appropriated earlier this year, we're up there spending it right now fixing issues like this. So it was all critical that it happened in that manner to be able to respond to those challenges. But similar to the US 40, we completed the US 191 study to likewise collect the issues from our partners and make sure we understood what was happening with the trucking numbers, and talk to the county commissioners and put together a list of priorities that then was used by the legislature to pair with the funding that was set aside. So that study is also linked there if you're interested. We're going to talk about that program that we put together in concert with Region 4 to deliver the projects and to make the best use out of that $88.5 million. And Matt's going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. I can turn it over to Matt right now.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Matt Parker. I'm the Region 3 Program Manager. Thank you for your time. We wanted to discuss a little bit about the projects in the area that have been completed recently, and some are pretty significant that have kind of impacted travel throughout the US 40 corridor, especially. The first one was the US 40 Starvation River Bridge, or the Starvation Reservoir Bridge. It is just a few miles to the west of here, a rather large piece of our infrastructure and pretty expensive if we let things slide. So this project was really just to maintain it and extend the life of that asset. We repaired the bridge deck, the parapet, and also did a polymer overlay over the deck. Construction was completed in 2021, and it was a little over $2 million. And one of the significant impacts to the public was that we had to shut down the video. Anyway, it shut down the traffic to one lane in each direction, so there were about 15-minute delays through there. And US 40 is a pretty big corridor, obviously, for the trucking, so it did kind of cause some delays, but it's much better to prepare and fix those things and keep the infrastructure going than the inconvenience of a few people. So another one was US 40, the Strawberry River Bridge, or Strawberry Valley passing lane project. And that one, we actually did about 11, 12 miles of pavement rehabilitation. Throughout the valley, there used to be very little passing lanes. And this improved that a ton by adding a ton of passing lanes. And we also did some wildlife improvements and a bunch of fencing to keep the animals off the road. And once we actually have some ramps that allow animals, once they're on or somehow get into that corridor, you have ramps that they can get back out and back into where they need to be. This picture right here kind of shows across the valley one of the locations where we extended a box culvert, and that was in conjunction with the DNR. That there's a ton of snowmobiling up in that area, and we would have snowmobilers would have to go on to US 40 and then follow it because the boxes weren't long enough. So we were able to extend one of them and get it so that we could keep the snowmobilers off the highway and just cross it. This was actually completed in 2020, and it was almost $34 million. So it was a pretty significant investment into the US 40 corridor. And I had this slide in here for Luke, who had a snowmobiler sign, so that was for a crossing. And we actually had an opening, we coordinated with the DNR to create an opening in the fence so the snowmobilers could go across and then get over to where they're trying to recreate. So it was kind of a safety enhancement. And then part of the wildlife improvements was to put in a multi-plate culvert to allow the animals to cross under the US 40 rather than at grade. So increase the safety quite a bit through that corridor. Some of the smaller projects, but pretty significant if you're trying to drive around here, was a signal that was installed in at the Ioka Lane or SR 87 US 40 junction, but this one's right near Roosevelt. And similar to what we heard earlier about all the trucking impacts, this intersection was pretty difficult for trucks to actually access US 40 and cross and go in towards Roosevelt. So this intersection really improved that access and safety for the area. This was actually completed this year, and it was a little over $320,000, right at $320,000. And it was actually constructed at the same time as the signal here in Roosevelt, which was a few miles away. There's a reason we did that is because it's actually more efficient for the contractor to come out and build two at once. It really helps. And they're also doing the same type of work. So this intersection was also had a new signal. This is just west of US 40, where we bend from northward to eastward towards Vernal. And then one that's actually pretty significant is that there's a school just to the north of this intersection. There's also the hospital. So this signal really allowed them to have preemption and allow the ambulances and things to leave to a signalized intersection without having to worry about accidents. But also, it is now used for a school crossing. So it increased the safety for the students in the area and all the people that want to cross and get over to infrastructure that's to the north from the south or vice versa. And it was about $130,000. Okay. Sorry about that. Catch it back up. Okay. We are also, those were projects that were recently completed, but now we're into projects that are in construction. This is a project that we actually passed through yesterday. We're going to be widening for passing lanes up at milepost 280 to 282 on 191, and we will be installing culverts this year, allowing those to settle out throughout the winter, and then do the widening and repave next year. And doing so will allow that pavement to be much smoother and have a much better finished product. The budget of this project was right at $10.5 million, so that will be a pretty significant improvement for the passing lanes and for people to be able to get around the trucks. One other kind of smaller improvement, but it's a pretty big safety improvement, is we are going to be widening the access to the dump. It's just about 7.5 miles to the north here, and I think this video kind of shows exactly why we're doing it. So hopefully it works. But this was funded through Transportation Solutions. This is a truck trying to turn and access the dump, and kind of turn on to oncoming traffic on SR 87, and then they go right into the opposite lane and to the oncoming traffic as they turn. And the reason they have to do that is because there is a power pole kind of to the right where my cursor is. And so we're going to have to relocate that power pole and widen the access to the dump road. And this will allow a much safer operation for the trucks. And that actually is to be scheduled to start construction next week and be done within a month.
I think it's important. I think the commission needs to know that the dump is also Wasatch County's. They haul all of their garbage out there. Partners in the landfill up here on Blue Beds.
And I think Justin Lazenby, our shed foreman yesterday, was telling us that I think they call it Mount Bluebell or something like that. It's a pretty large disposal place. And the budget on that was a little under $400,000, but you know, thanks for the Transportation Solutions, it really allows us to address these things. And one thing I would like to add about that one is this concern was brought to us through the coordination with Duchesne County. So I do want to recognize that they are the ones that brought that forward and made us aware of the concern. Another one is the US 191 Indian Canyon pavement the emergency pavement repair that we're to actually have down some of it, and the rest of it should be done next week on this portion. As you know, we received $8.5 million through the legislature this year. We actually received funding on July 1st, and we actually have pavement down already within 2.5 months. So we really worked hard to use that money and get it down as quickly as possible and prepare for the winter that's coming. And as you know, it's currently under construction, and the budget of that was $4.9 million. We have some projects currently in design, you know, obviously in this area. The first one is one that was identified in the US 40 study that we just updated that Rob spoke to you about. It is the US 40 passing lanes near Fruitland. This project will extend the eastbound and westbound passing lanes near Fruitland. You know where the Fruitland store is, and there's kind of an old white church kind of on the corner, just to the west of the Fruitland store. There is a passing lane in there. It's debatable if it's a passing lane because it's very, very short. And I think anybody that drives that knows that it's super short. So we're going to be extending that up towards the white church there on the corner, and it'll be a significant improvement to that direction. And then we also have the passing lane that goes to the west, coming out from Current Creek at the bottom and coming up. And in this picture, you look kind of up towards the sign right by that white vehicle that's coming down the hill. The passing lane ends right, it's even before the top, which is not ideal for a passing lane, especially when you're trying to get around a truck. So this passing lane will be extended above the crest and allow vehicles and trucks to get around and pass each other. So that would be a significant improvement for that section of road. And obviously it was a pretty important project, and construction will start next year. We're actually currently trying to acquire some right of way and trying to get the plans together to be able to advertise this spring or early 2024. We will be also doing some intersection improvements and some shoulder widening throughout the area too. And kind of the big reason we're here is the US 191 program that received $88.5 million. And we just discussed kind of the 2023 project that's under construction, $4.9 million of paving going down this year. And we're currently in design for the 2024 project that will put down about $13.2 million worth of pavement improvements and overlays throughout the corridor. And as discussed yesterday, we also are currently getting somebody under contract to start the design of these projects. We broke out the other major items of the project into two projects. One is kind of north of the summit, and one is kind of south of the summit. And these projects were broken out strategically to be able to use competitive bids from different contractors and different material sources. So, and we do want to recognize that we partnered with Region 4. So this plan was not just kind of a Region 3 plan. Region 3 and Region 4 met like literally right after this program was funded. And we wanted to make sure that we knew how to deliver this project or these projects and this program with the minimal amount of impact to the public. Because there's quite a bit of potential for impacts to the public if we have 10 projects and 10 different contractors, and sometimes they don't really consider their impacts to the other contractors. So we try to minimize that by making it so that there could be two contractors and we could make sure that they can coordinate with each other. And I just wanted to, thank Region 4 for their input and their thought, because we wouldn't have been able to come up with as good of plan and a comprehensive plan. And for the traveling public, they don't recognize that this corridor crosses two different regions. So we wanted to make sure it was as seamless as possible. And I did want to highlight two projects, two improvements to the corridor that are in Region 4. The first one was the Emma Park Road that recently was used quite a bit for the US 6 mudslide bypass. But this improvement will provide a southbound right turn lane and also a northbound acceleration lane at that intersection. And then we also have this project was at US 6 and 191, and it was actually previously funded, and it will install a high T intersection, which will be signalized. As you can see in this picture right here, there's a truck that's coming off of 191 going towards Helper and Price. I guess Commissioner Zanotti went through this intersection yesterday multiple times, but the truck that's going out and going on to US 6 does not have a receiving lane through there. So it kind of causes some issues with merging into the US 6 traffic. So this design will provide that acceleration lane and merge lane for the trucks to be able to get onto US 6, and also provide them stop the traffic going up Canyon and allow the trucks to get across without having to have any accidents or anything like that. So it's a big safety improvement. There will also be some VMS board and some truck pullout improvements in the area. So that will also help alleviate some concerns and some issues and notify the traveling public what they might actually see going up to the top. Because as we saw yesterday, the weather can be different from the bottom to the top. So we want to be able to let them know what they're going to experience as they go up. So that's really what we wanted to cover. And any questions that you might have?
When is that last project going to start?
So that one is redesign. I'm not sure. It's actually covered under Region 4. Kirk, come up.
Kirk Bernard, Region 4 Deputy Director. Yes, it's under design and it's slated to construct next summer.
Any other questions? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Donna, you have a question? Go ahead.
I know it's harder when I'm not in the room, right?
Oh.
I have a comment and a question. So first of all, a comment to the fact that I appreciate the way that Region 3 and 4 work together. The traveling public doesn't know, nor do they care about our boundaries, be they counties or regions. And so I appreciate the collaborative effort that was put there to make sure that the traveling public is well tended. And then if I read the chart right, the proposals for Highway 191 come in about $5 million higher than the legislative funding. And my question would be, was that a bad question for you? The question will be, what's our plan to cover that difference?
So Commissioner Law, the extra $5 million was for that intersection at US 6 and 191, and it was previously funded. So I was just showing kind of the overall funding that was going to that corridor.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I missed that bit.
And I guess I could have included the other $10.5 million that was for the passing lanes at milepost 280 to 282, but I was showing ones that were actually coming up.
Keep that as a surprise.
So thank you for the question and the clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions from Matt or Rob? Thank you. Good job. For the mayors and the city managers, county commissioners here in this meeting, so they're online, just recognize that we have so far, by rough estimate, $73 million already been spent, or going to be spent by end of this year in new communities. And $93.5 million is coming in 2025. So when you sit in your meetings, you can share this video with them, your public, constituents, those taxpayers that are concerned about where the money's going and how you're going to be taking care of the communities. And let them know that UDOT and UDOT Commission working diligently to bring you the comfort, connections, and most of all, life-saving measures. So please use these videos. Don't just take it as a, well, 5 minutes is good. It's a good tool for your communities, for the citizens to see. Thank you. At this time, we have public comments. No, wait a minute. I still have to go to. Yeah, public comment is first. We're going to invite the public to come forward and introduce yourself, please.
But if you have similar stories to tell, please save us time.
We're consolidating.
Okay.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. Thanks for your time. It's a beautiful day. Erin Ferguson with Save People, Save Wildlife. Or Mike Thomas with Save People, Save Wildlife.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. So we're here on behalf of the nonprofit Save People, Save Wildlife. We've independently fundraised over $200,000, and we've provided those funds to UDOT, the public donated funds, to provide to UDOT to ensure that wildlife fencing has been installed in Summit County, which is Region 2 primarily, wildlife connectivity efforts. Excuse me. The following is an excerpt from the Park Record, which is a local paper in Park City. Just amplifies the issues that we're here today. The section of SR 224, as it passes the McCullen Farm, has long been notorious for collisions involving drivers and wildlife. Deer, elk, and other wildlife inhabit the mountainous terrain on the fringe of the open space and on the land on the other side of SR 224. The animals are vulnerable as they move from one side of the heavily traveled SR 224 to the other. Steps have been taken to reduce the danger to people and animals, such as lowering the speed limit along the corridor, signage, silhouettes. The collisions are continuing and at a growing rate. According to the Utah Department of Transportation, crews in 2018 responded to 46 collisions between drivers and wildlife on the stretch of SR 224 between Kimball Junction and the intersection with SR 248, a section of road that includes the portion outside the McCullen Farm, as well as the route through Snyderville Basin. Of those 46 collisions that involved the UDOT response, 42 were between a driver and a deer. Elk were hit in 2 of the collisions, while drivers ran into moose in the other 2 cases, the statistics show. The numbers along the SR 224 entryway far exceeded those on the SR 248 corridor between the US 40 interchange and the intersection with 224 in town. 10 collisions, all involving deer, were reported on the SR 248 corridor during the same period, but the entryway numbers do not include animals that were hit by a driver, survived and were hit, ambled away, later died from their injuries. So we have to give the watchers advice.
We are here today to voice our concern regarding SR 224 in Park City. Snyderville Basin is a wildlife habitat. It's a large wildlife, and the habitat are deer, elk, and moose. SR 224 cuts the habitat in half. Wildlife is forced to cross SR 224 for full access to their habitat. Drivers and wildlife are at risk in this environment. SR 224 has the 5th highest number of vehicle-wildlife collisions per mile per highway per year of any highway in Utah. A new project on SR 224 is a bus rapid transit project. The project would build 2 new lanes on SR 224, one in each direction on opposing sides of the roadway. The roadway will widen from 82 feet to 115 curb to curb. This is a 40% increase in road width. Adding 2 lanes will make it virtually impossible for large wildlife to cross SR 224 without getting hit. SR 224 has been identified as the 5th worst highway in Utah for wildlife collisions at a 2.97 wildlife vehicle collision per mile per year. The 2019 Kramer final report to the Utah Department of Transportation. The most recent study of wildlife collisions on 224 is the Utah Department of Transportation Wildlife Vehicle Collision Study, SR 224, Summit County, prepared by BioWest, dated January of 2022. It references the UDOT 2019 Kramer study regarding SR 224 and notes that the frequency of wildlife vehicle collisions within the corridor is a source of economic, safety, and natural resource concern. The 2010 to 2020, the cost of wildlife vehicle collisions on SR 224 totaled over $7.5 million. SR 224 currently experiences more than 30,000 plus annual average daily trips, which will only increase in the future, making it even more dangerous. Region 2 has the highest increase in population and growth, and we need to address the 3 decades of studies regarding the severity of wildlife vehicle collisions on SR 224. It impacts drivers and wildlife. And we are asking the commission to weigh in to ensure that SR 224 is addressed appropriately and wildlife crossings and fencing are implemented prior to the 40% of road widening as a result of the bus rapid transit commencing.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any questions at all?
It's good education. Thanks.
We're talking there by the old white barn.
Yes.
Well, the whole corridor from Kimball Junction into Kearns, which is
Yeah.
where 248 crosses.
So has there been identified a crossing area that will serve, take
We,
care of most of
we
it?
proposed an option. There's an existing underpass at the White Barn. But we proposed to Park City Council last year, almost exactly a year ago, actually, on saying that we could widen that existing underpass, provide wildlife fencing to guide them to the underpass, and then that would be least disruptive to the view corridor. But that is still under consideration by the entities.
When we've met with Park City Council, Summit, County Council, HVT, which is High Valley Transit, they've all said that it is a concern, and they keep saying that they can't do it without UDOT. And UDOT says that they need to have the county and the city's support, but we keep doing circles because they keep pointing to each other. And it's a real problem. I mean, every winter we have a herd of elk that sit on the edge of 224 and Utah Highway Patrol and Park City Police Department every single day, every dawn and every dusk from December to April have to escort this elk herd, if they can get to it, to prevent wildlife vehicle collisions with people. And it's just pure carnage all over the road. And we have a huge public support saying that people are tired of it. They want a crossing. They want some sort of fencing to prevent that. And with a 40% widening of this road, it's just incomprehensible that they would even put this bus rapid transit system in to just exacerbate the problem that already exists. So we really need this addressed because they're starting to look at starting this process with High Valley Transit bus system next spring. And it needs to be addressed, and doing nothing just is not acceptable.
Well, we've tried doing, the silhouettes, this increased signage, this speed limit reduction in cooperation with UDOT. And those are, valid measures, but they're not a solution. We need a permanent solution, and wildlife connectivity components, fencing, crossings, cattle guards at driveways and cross streets. That's a solution that's both advantageous for wildlife and public safety.
Carlos, can you just remind the group just when we get this input, what happens with it? Just so people know.
Yes, please.
Just so they know the process that we use.
Well, Region 2, Dr. Stewart, his folks have been working together. So I want to say thank you for the way you've worked with the department.
Well, thank you.
There are people, organizations that, choose a different path, they'll just throw stones. You've been very productive, and I think we've had some positive results working together.
Absolutely.
This is a interesting solution because I think definitely, as you said, everyone's pointing at each other. This, in any organization's eyes, whether it be the city, county, High Valley Transit, Park City, or the department, we could all say, well, that's not ours. We're not winding the road. High Valley is. Well, they're going to say it's UDOT's road. And so I think it's incumbent on us to now to take this and work together as partners to figure out what the solution is. It's expensive. Doing a grade separation is an expensive project.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
So the return on investment is something to be considered as well.
I drive this corridor a couple times every week. I'm familiar with it. Robert, is there anything you'd like to say? Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Robert, did you want to come up? Yes. Nice speaking. Nice speaking. everyone who's watching from around the world would not be able to.
Robert Stewart, Region 2 Director. I echo everything that they've talked about, right? I think that we have studied this corridor. What you talk about is true. I think the only disagreement that we have with Save People Save Wildlife right now is where our focus lies today. So right now we're looking at grade separations at the Echo Junction area, because from our standpoint, it's a higher priority, but that doesn't mean we're done working on 224. I think we agree on everything. It's just, where are we focusing first? Does that make sense?
Can you give us an idea of the cost, what we're looking at? What's the grade separation? Maybe what the projection is and what kind of funding would be needed?
It's in the millions of dollars for the grade separation in there, and it's not just the grade separation. It's also the fencing. One of the other challenges we have with fencing in this area is that it would cross private property, right? In order to properly get the animals to a wildlife crossing, we don't have the right of way to do it, right? So it's the fencing, and it's also like cattle guards, like we were mentioning, right? At driveways and things like that. It just elevates the costs dramatically, and so where we focus our efforts for fencing in this area, and with Save People Save Wildlife, like you mentioned, Carlos, Save People Save Wildlife hasn't been an organization that just throws stones. They've raised funds to contribute to the solution. So we've worked with them to put wildlife fencing on I-80. We're continuing to march down I-80 through this area for the wildlife fencing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions for us?
Thank you.
No, but thank you for your input.
Yes,
We
thank
appreciate
you for your time.
Thank you. And please. I would like to recognize my dear friends and colleagues from CIP. Commissioner Greg Miles.
Thank you. It's great to be with you. Thanks for letting me say a few comments. And I would just like to start by saying how much we appreciate our Region 3 team. When I said our, because I feel like
That's the way
they're our team. Rob has been excellent, and anytime we call Rob or Larry or anybody on the team, they respond. And so they've collaborated on the projects that have been mentioned and on so many other things, and we appreciate being part of those solutions and for them taking our comments back and working so well with us. And to reiterate what you said, Mr. Chairman, these projects are saving lives. The Highway 40 Ioka specifically, there was a young gal that was killed there just months ago. So these projects are making a huge difference in our communities. We appreciate our partnership with UDOT, and the improvements that you've made on Highway 40 have been substantial in the last decade. Thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate the commission and what you do for our state. And I would also like to take this opportunity to advocate for UDOT taking over ownership of Emma Park Road. Okay, I didn't want this opportunity to pass without saying, I do think it's still the name of the Utah Highway Commission, right away is. But that road has been used at least 3 times, not more, in the last couple of years as a bypass to Highway 6 because of the fire and the mudslides and overturns with trucks. There is a state benefit to have that maybe fixed. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for your service. Thank you for being on the CRP board and fighting for the 14 counties of the eastern and southern Utah. But I can tell you my personal opinion in the Emma Park Road. I've driven that road so many times. I've talked to commissioners, that leadership. When we try to negotiate land acquisition right away with one owner, it takes forever. Now we have 3 ownership in that road, multi-jurisdictional ownership. So it's going to be a challenge for you, not anybody. But if you have a way of doing that, raise the fund and come forward and we'll discuss. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the floor, please? Say your name and your relationship to the community.
My name is Keith Despain. I'm the Public Works Director for Vernal City. Appreciate you being out here in the basin with us today, and wanted to also express gratitude for all that UDOT does for us out here in the basin. We appreciate the support and the funds and the partnership that we have as we work through projects. I'd like to echo Commissioner Miles's comments on the Region 3 team. Outstanding people. Love to work with them, doing a great job. We appreciate the opportunities that we've had as a city to partner with them on projects. We have a couple coming out this next year for construction. We've been blessed by some of the UDOT projects for sidewalk safety, safe routes to school and safety sidewalks projects. We appreciate that as well. And then just wanted also to echo the appreciation for the Highway 40 attention over the last many years. When I moved to Vernal 16 years ago, that was a hard road to drive, even just between Vernal and Roosevelt. And in the last while, it's been greatly improved. The safety is much better, and it's just a much easier route now to navigate. So we appreciate all that you do, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Anyone else? Don't be shy. First 10 minutes is free. Seeing none, I'm gonna
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You know, we discussed Emma Park yesterday, a number of us. I guess, could somebody tell me when or why it was built in the first place? Who built it?
I don't know the history.
You know, and I know that it is, you know, it's a safety thing, but it's one of those things. There's another road in the state that's similar to that. It's the Ivapaw Road out in Tooele County. It got built, but nobody owns it. Nobody claims it. And that's kind of where Emma Park's coming down. And there's certainly a solution there for all of us, but it's going to take some binding arbitration probably to get it resolved. You know, and it's just one of those things that at some point in time we got to sit down and look at it, try to decide, and then, you know, yesterday we sat there and we looked at what, $3.7 billion in needs that are in other parts of the state. I mean, like it or not, we are growing from a small state to a medium state, and we haven't had 20 years to get ready for that, and we are in the process. 244, I remember when I went over there in high school and played basketball at Park City, there was nothing there. So we've moved to the animals, and now the animals are just wanting to have their little corner. But there's responsibilities there on everybody's sides. And we just got to come up with a Utah solution to make it work. And everybody wants all the projects, but nobody wants to pay. I thought that yesterday as we reviewed the trails. And I know they're wonderful things when we get together and we say, oh, we're going to do this trail and we're going to do all this and that. But when it comes to paying for them and long-term maintenance, we got to come up with some kind of a system to determine if they're going to be successful long-term, short-term, in some way that we're going to not go out and build the end without having the middle put together. So that'll be some of the things that I will be looking forward as we work with trails. The others, it's not just, it's easy to come up with great ideas, especially when you don't have to pay. Let's do this, it's easy. But when you have to pay and actually start doing it, then it gets a little more binding. And, you know, I'd love to have a fancy Ford F-150 with all the bells and whistles, but I have to settle for an F-150 bottom end because that's what I can afford. And we have that same issue within the state of Utah. And we need, because of the limited number of dollars that we have to deal with, we got to make sure that all that we spend is spent on something that's going to be built upon, not build the end and then hope we can get some middle up to it. So, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I said probably.
Thank you. Yes.
Commissioners, Kurt Bronoff, Region 4 Deputy Director. Based on information from our outstanding tour guide from Christ and Hinkley, who's our district engineer, I just thought the question was, why was it built? And he texted me and said that, you know, the right of way is in UDOT's name because it was built as a bypass when the Price Canyon was constructed in the 1960s. So that's the reason where it was built. So I just thought that'd be good to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Much better than Google. Thank you. We had one more person online, Oliver Brown. Are you still with us? Mr. Brown?
It doesn't look like he's on.
Nope. Okay. Anyone else? If not, I'm moving on to the next item. Agenda number 4 is Federal Highway Report, and I think Ivan, you're up.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Ivan Morero, and I serve as the Division Administrator for the Federal Highway Administration Office here in Utah. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to bring a couple items from the federal side to your attention, and I'll start by saying go T-Birds, beat West End. Good luck this weekend. And to follow up on the previous point about the wildlife crossing on 224, I just want to remind everybody listening that there is a federal discretionary grant program called the Wildlife Crossing Pilot Grant that is available for any agency or government entity that would like to apply for that. So I do encourage them to take a look at that and consider putting in for that grant. I think it for this year's round, if we're ready to close, but there will be another round in the following year to apply another opportunity. So let's see. Couple of things for your attention. First of all, the August redistribution. So, you know, every year the Federal Highway Administration does all we can to make sure that every single dollar that is allotted to us by Congress gets distributed to the states. We have been very successful at that throughout the years. This year was a bit of a challenge. We had $7.9 billion to redistribute, and it's $1.6 billion more than we ever had before. So it was quite a challenge, but we worked with our state, and we were able to, as usual, redistribute every penny that was available. And Utah received $48.6 million of that amount. So I do want to thank the programming and financial and planning units at Utah. They did a great job working with us to come up with the projects to put the money on. So thank you again. And they must be obligated by the 25th of September, and I think we will have no problem. I always like to illustrate this way because it's the only way I can understand it. But basically, what we've done is we've increased the catch limit. Congress says our catch limit every year, and our catch limit was $403 million or million fish. So we've been able to add another 48 million fish to the pond or to the obligation limit. And so the catch limit now is $451 million. So again, a good, at least a 10%, almost 50% increase from where we started with. So good news. And just to show you how that equates to prior redistributions, a little bit more than that. We've seen an increase throughout the last few years. So we're at about $3.4 million more than we got last year. So that's sort of the way it goes. Couple of new grants that came out in the last couple of weeks. We had this one called the Electric Vehicle Charger Reliability and Accessibility Accelerator. grant, and the purpose is to, it's part of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. It's a 10% set aside that can be utilized to help states assist them in deploying the infrastructure. And this particular one is going to provide $100 million to help repair or replace broken electric vehicle chargers throughout the nation. So state DOTs and local governments can apply for the grant, and I provided all the information there for anybody interested if they want to go there and find out more about this. The grants are due, the applications are due November 13th. This second one is more of a grant meant to help communities that may be either disadvantaged or they don't have the resources to put their transportation program. So it's more used to provide money for these capacity builders to help educate the local communities and other disadvantaged communities. So if it provides, basically build training capacity, and then anybody that's interested in receiving that assistance can submit a letter of interest, so then we can provide this assistance to them for free. So the capacity builders, their application is due November 28th, and anybody that wants to request assistance through this program can submit their letter of interest by November 15th. And all the information on how to get to those, that information is providing those links right there. Finally, just a couple of things. One of the things that is required for obligating the funds under our National Highway Freight Program is to have a freight plan, a state freight plan. So on September 18th, we were able to we reviewed, and we were able to determine that the plan that Utah developed meets all the federal requirements. So that allows them to start obligating the funds under that program. So thanks again to the freight section of Utah for putting that together. The STIP needs to be approved before the end of the fiscal year. So it is currently in our office. The STIP is reviewed and approved by Federal Highways and Federal Transit. So we're currently reviewing it, and we expect to have it approved by the 1st of October, so that the program can keep going. And the end of year obligations, what we call closing the books, that I got the email that all the federal funds have been obligated, so the balance is $0 as of Wednesday. So again, I want to thank Utah for all the amazing work they do to get to this stage so early. They are usually one of the first states to get all the money obligated. So thanks again to Utah for that. And I always finish with this slide just for anybody that wants to learn more about the federal grants that are out there. There's a place to go. They can click on these links and it will take you to there. You can find out about the grants, how to apply for them, and everything else that you need. So with that, look, thank you. And any questions?
Commissioner Long, any questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy fishing.
Item number 5 on your agenda is UDOT scoreboard, and I think Lisa Watson is going to take from Carmen, and then she's going to be followed by Joe Peters.
Good morning, Lisa Wilson, UDOT Deputy Director for Engineering Operations. For our project delivery update today, we're currently sitting with 4 projects past due. Unfortunately, a couple of these will probably be sitting here for quite some time. We have some difficult right-of-way issues on some projects and some work with Union Pacific that we're working on with railroad agreements. We're currently sitting at 90% advertised on time with 31 total projects advertised since July 1st. This is a credit to our region project teams who have been working extra hard to take advantage of the federal highway August redistribution funds so that we could get all of those obligated projects out. So we've advertised a total project value of about $515 million. Over the last month, we've advertised 22 projects for $137 million approximately. You can see most of the projects for the next couple of months have been advertised. Do still have a couple outstanding projects to be advertised in September, October, but our project teams have done a great job getting out ahead of our delivery status. We currently have 190 active construction projects, which we've paid out almost $1.5 billion to contractors, with about $875 million remaining on those certain contracts. In the month of September so far, we've paid out about $35 million. We do expect September to look a lot like August when we get to the end. Last but not least, our project estimating. We haven't had a lot of bid openings in September. You can see that we have had a few come in with the bids higher than our estimates. That is becoming less common as we work through these, but we still do have some project types that we have some concerns with. Our teams have been doing really well. So that is the update for today. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Lisa?
It's great. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Troy?
Board commissioners, thank you for the opportunity this morning to talk about zero fatalities. First thing I'd like to do is give a quick update on our 100 deadliest days. You know, it's been a little bit of time since that ended, which was, remember, that's basically Memorial Day, Labor Day. And looking at this chart here, our total fatalities for that time period, which this year was 84. If you look back at this chart over the last 10 years, this was our second lowest number of fatalities in that time period that we tracked, which was, that's a positive indication, but there's still, the negative side of that is there are still 84 individuals that lost their lives. With that, I'm going to step over real quick and jump on to RCO, where we're at today. If you look at this graph, I want to remind you that there's a orange line and a blue line. Hard to see on that on the overhead here, but the orange line is our targeted, which is we use the target is basically a 3-year average, and we take out 3-year average and reduce that by 2.5% to set that target. And one thing I'd like to report is, for the first time that I've been given this report, that the blue line is actually lower than the orange line. So our actuals are lower than our targeted reduction would have been, which is also good news. However, that number we're at 200 as of today. We're at 200 fatalities for the year. One thing I'd like to just point out, of those 200 fatalities, there are 66 of those fatalities are in our vulnerable users, which I indicated for our pedestrian, bicyclists, and motorcyclists. There's been 22 pedestrian deaths, 8 bicycle deaths, and 36 motorcycle deaths, which comes out to about 33% of our overall number of fatalities. Next item I have here is just looking at our suspected serious traffic injuries. We're sitting at about 1,057 suspected, which is a little bit higher than the reduction target of 992. And then also our total number of crashes. This is a little bit higher. We're over 40,000 crashes on the year, with a targeted reduction at 33,000. So that number seems to be going a little bit higher, while others look to be coming down a little bit.
Troy, in the previous chart on the graph, why do you call them suspected?
So great question, and this question's been asked before, and I'm glad you asked it now, because this time I actually have the answer with me. Suspected is added into that verbiage. Let me just scroll back up to that. Because at the time of the crash, the officer is making an assessment of what that level of severity for that individual's injuries might be. So he says at that time, the officer is making a judgment call. The only way that would be verified is if that person might fail. It would be a follow-up in terms of what that individual could happen there. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
I believe. Yes, that's all I have today. I always do like to leave one, like Ivan, I like to leave one item with you, and that's the 5 safe driving behaviors. Always wear a seatbelt, be sober, drive focused, calm, and order. Any questions?
Are we seeing in these crashes, is there an analysis of the reason, or, you know, are we seeing any new trends? I guess is what I'm asking, is we're seeing increased numbers.
I'm not sure about new trends, but we do track all those numbers. I'd like to give a report every spring with that. Well, we have to have full years of analysis in there, so we can really go through those real good. You know, I think it's the same. The ones that we've seen a lot are distracted and impairment.
Yeah.
We're trending up on bike, auto, bike accidents and all about the same. Pedestrian, seems like there's been an awful lot of people that did it.
No, I don't know if I don't have that with me. I don't know if the gentleman here may have an answer for us. I might be calling a friend here. That's
fine. I just get curious.
I know Robert was here the last time we met, and he had some information he can share on where we stood with the rates would have looked the bicycle. And hopefully, I'm not putting him on the spot.
Oh, you won't.
Morning, Commissioners. Robert Miles, Central Traffic and Safety, Kentucky Public Transportation. Not too much on the spot. I give you some generalities. I don't remember the exact numbers I had prepared last month because they've changed. When it comes to active transportation crashes, we've seen a slight decrease in bikes, bike crashes. Well, it's actually a pretty decent decrease in bike fatalities and bike crashes this year. Our pedestrians are slightly lower. Motorcycles, we don't seem to see much in that at this case. But we are still working on solutions. We have some concepts we're working on the regions and new tools we're putting in place to try and identify the problems and try and come up with new solutions. But at the end of the day, you know, it really is about what we choose to do as operators on the roadway and our behaviors. As Troy mentioned earlier, please choose safely.
Thank you.
Anything else I can provide?
Thank you. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, item number 6, consent agenda. I can see that Ivan Harlan is anxious to wait for his turn.
Thank you. Good morning. Ivan Farrell, Financial Programming. Go T-Bird. Right. Consent agenda number 6, or item number 6 is the consent agenda. So included in the packet, in the consent agenda packet, are the minutes from the August 17th, 2023 staff meeting update, the August 17th, 2023 area road tour, and the August 18th, 2023 Transportation Commission meeting, and the August 18th, 2023 OGX tour hosted by UTA. Also included is a list of projects that are either have been awarded, have budget amounts that can be recovered during the closeout process, and have funding available to remove and be reprogrammed. So without too much motion sickness, this first item, our Thursday staff meeting notes, the tour notes on Thursday. And then our meeting on Friday, commission meeting notes,
and minutes. And then the OGX tour hosted by UTA with one item on our consent agenda, projects returning fire. Our request today is a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I would make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any corrections? Comment? Concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Thank you.
Moving to item number 7, the programming items. Item 8A-1 is a new project, US 89, the overhead runway truck ramp signage. This is a new project from the Transportation Solutions Program of $500,000. This project will install a large overhead BMS sign prior to the runway truck ramp in Garden City. This sign will help direct and notify drivers that a runway truck ramp is open. It will look something like this with the overhead sign. Our request today is a motion to add the US 89 overhead runway truck ramp sign project to the current status.
I'll make that motion, and I'd like to make a comment, if I could, Mr. Chair. Thank you. This is another step in increasing safety there, and we appreciate it, and the community and community leaders appreciate this change. So thank you.
I'd second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
But please.
Just a question. I appreciate, and Commissioner Menlove, thank you for the work that you've done to help bring this to our awareness. Is the sign right there far enough in advance that the truck drivers can make the decision to exit?
We have a lifeline coming forward.
Rob White, Region 1 Director. There's a series of signs, and this is the final sign, specifically one of the recent crashes that we've had in the area. The truck driver commented that she thought that the system was closed. And so this is a sign that was originally considered when the truck escape ramp was designed and built, that it was taken out, and we're actually putting it back in. Some of the truck escape ramps have this sign, some don't. We chose to put this back in as an added safety precaution to make sure that they understand. There are several signs upstream of this, so they know it's coming, and this is the final sign that they have right before the ramp. So the system of signs is able to help warn the driver that this is coming.
Thanks for that clarity.
You're welcome.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I was counting the signs the other evening coming home up the canyon, then down into Garden City, and there is significant increase in signage, and it's larger and brighter, and there's also an electronic sign that catches your attention that's very large. So Rob and his team have done an excellent job of increasing the signage there. This is just that one piece of signage that will really help that one issue of the person not thinking it was open. So
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7A-1 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. 8-2, the I-15 bridge deck preservation and scope and funds transfer. It removes $1 million from the I-15 concrete repair and expansion joint project in 20025 and adds that scope and funding to the I-15 bridge deck in 18254. The scope of the first I-15 concrete repair and expansion joint project is to repair bridge approach slabs, reestablish joint expansion joints, and repair adjacent concrete pavement panels. Some of the repair locations are within the project limits of the I-15 bridge deck preservation project. Region 2 requests moving the overlapping portion of the scope for the I-15 concrete repair and expansion joints project into the I-15 bridge deck preservation project, along with the corresponding budget. which should reduce coordination between these two projects and streamline traffic impacts. So located here on our map in Salt Lake City, on I-15. And our request today is a motion to approve removing scope and funding from the I-15 concrete repair and expansion joints project and add it to the I-15 bridge deck preservation project as detailed.
I move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7A-2 is approved.
Our next item, 7A-3, is the I-15 33rd South to 90th South. This is a scope change on the project. When the project was initially scoped, it was for concrete spall repair of the pavement from 90th South to 33rd South. After further investigation, the project team determined a full depth and partial depth concrete is required. To work within the project budget, the project team determined to reduce the project length, ending at 7,200 South instead of 3,300 South. Okay, here on our map, with Mid-Val. And our request today is a motion to approve changing the scope from the I-15 33rd South to 90th South project, the I-15 90th South to 7,200 South project is detailed.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion on. The microphone is muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Item 7A-3 is approved.
Our next item, 7A-4, I-80 milepost 131.4 to 134 pavement preservation project. This is a new project funded out of our high volume roads program. The scope of the I-80 milepost 131 to 134 pavement preservation project is to remove and replace an inch and a half of pavement. This section has shown the need for preservation, and this action will allow you to begin the design. Located here on our map, Farley. Our request today is a motion to approve adding the I-80 milepost 131.4 to 134 pavement preservation project to the current STIP as detailed.
I'll take that motion.
I second.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 7A-4 is approved. Thank you.
Next item, 7A-5, is the I-80 Kimball's Junctions to US 40 pavement preservation. This is also a new project from our high volume roads program. The scope of the I-80 Kimball's Junction to US 40 is to remove an inch of non-structural roll wearing surface and replace it with an inch and a half of structural material. During the last year, we began to see premature failing and 30 cores of pavement were taking. These cores showed the need to increase the structural capacity of the pavement and also removed a 1 inch wearing surface as it became unstable due to the high groundwater this past year. So located on I-80 farther up the canyon from the previous project, shown here from Kimball's Junction to US 40. Included in the packet today is some pictures of some of the coring samples that we received. Our request today is a motion to approve the I-80 Kimball's Junction to US 40 pavement preservation project to the current STIP as detailed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. I have a question. How many cores do you usually take at the sample?
Kendall?
All right.
Oh. Sorry.
Robert Stewart, Region 2 Director. It varies. The short answer is it varies the number of cores that we take on a particular project. Depending on the history of the road involved,
we try to take enough cores that we get a sense of what's going on in the pavement structure. And in this location, we actually took cores three years ago, and it didn't show signs of stripping within those cores. With the high water table that we had this last year, we started to see that premature failure. That's what drove us out there to see what was going on. And my inner nerd just can't be.
Robert, why don't you explain stripping?
Yeah, thank you. I'll get geeked out on this stuff. Yeah, so stripping is when the asphalt is usually water will wash away the asphalt from the aggregate. That's what's called stripping. But the asphalt is what glues and binds everything together. And so when that releases from the aggregates, bad things happen. But you can see like this core right here. You went to pull it out. There's a layer that no longer is bound together, right? And that's what we sense is that there was with the high water table, around a week later, within that asphalt pavement, it exploited it, and that's how we're having to react.
While you're at, Robert, explain that when you take the core, where you take it, what kind of process after that? What makes a determination?
So the core machine, right? It's a big drill, big hollow drill like a hole saw. Drill it down, extract it, and then it goes to our materials experts. And so we've got technicians and engineers that are dedicated to studying.
Every region has a material lab and materials engineers.
So what kind of tensile strength you have to expect from those cores, to pass your
We,
test?
we generally don't expose them to tensile strength. Most of this is just observation dates. We do take cores sometimes, and we'll actually run a hard wheel over it. It's called a Hamburg wheel tracker, and from that we can assess the rutting potential of a asphalt pavement. Different tests like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anytime you want to talk asphalt.
We're following you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion allowed.
Dang mute button, aye.
Thank you. I can read less, but I cannot hear your voice. Any opposed? Number 7A-5 is approved. Thank you.
Next item, 7A6, is the SR 210 Bagel Boulevard to SR 209. This is a project abandonment request. This project was approved prior to the completion of the Little Cottonwood Canyon environmental document. The scope of this project was to widen SR 210 to a 5-lane section between Bengal Boulevard and SR 209. With the subsequent approval of the record of decision for the Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, the project scope of work will be integrated into the EIS implementation. The remaining proposed project value is to address expenses already incurred on this project. Located here on our map. And our request today is a motion to approve abandoning the SR 210 Bengal Boulevard to SR 209 project and removing from the current STIP as detailed.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comment, questions, concerns on that particular project? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Item 7A-6 is approved.
7A-7, the Big Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Study. This is a new project from our recreational hotspot program for $2 million. The Little Cottonwood EIS record of decision identified tolling in Little Cottonwood Canyon as a key element of phase 1 of the selected alternative. UDOT proposes to implement a similar tolling policy in Big Cottonwood Canyon to reduce the potential for causing greater traffic congestion on SR 190. An environmental study must be implemented in Big Cottonwood Canyon before tolling can be implemented. So our request today is a motion to approve the Big Cottonwood Canyon environmental study and to add to the current STIP as detailed.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
It's a motion and a second. Any other questions? Yes, Carlos?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to remind the commission, if the outcome of this environmental document is the toll, it's the commission's role to set that toll rate. So
Thank you.
you're welcome very much.
Thank you for that.
Just warning you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
just a question. I know that we have had this hotspot funding for several years. Do we, what's the balance of the hotspot funding that we have left? Is that an appropriate question to ask, or you can tell me?
Yes, it is.
It is, and Josh, you know.
And can you tell I'm transitioning to another media now while I do something different?
Okay.
Josh Beanger, Director of Trails and Transit Division. I do need to phone a friend on the exact balance. My understanding is the majority of the money has actually been moved into a different pin. So it's no longer an hotspot pin and has been moved into the same pin that has the $150 million that was allocated under SB2. But let me phone a friend and get an exact number. I can get you close.
Thank you, Josh.
So in June, we funded 2 projects out of the Red Hotspot program. The first was the enhanced bus tolling, bus facilities project, and that was 42 million, and a $4 million sign, if I remember right, a couple $1 million sign project to alert drivers before they reach the Cottonwood Canyons. Our balance in our Rec Trails Hotspot program for the Cottonwood Canyons is about $1.5 million. Plus or minus 10%. Not much.
Good job. Thank you. So all in favor of this project, let's say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Item 7A-7 is approved.
Yeah, our next item, our next item 7A-8 is SR 68 Redwood Road and Aspen Hills Boulevard in Saratoga Springs, scope and funding addition from our Transportation Solutions Program. The current scope of the SR 68 Redwood Road and Aspen Hills Boulevard Saratoga project will sign a signal at the intersection of Aspen Hill Boulevard and Saratoga Springs and Redwood Road.
Love those pants.
Thank you, Don.
Legs of the intersections do not align. Widening the west leg is needed, which it will impact the water line and some curb and gutter. This request is to add $1,005,000 in order to advance the project. Mountain Land Associate Governments approved on July 31st, 2023. So located here, here's our map. This is the intersection that we're talking about. You can see the east and west legs of the intersection do not align. So the roadway would expand on the north side here of Aspen Hill Boulevard.
And we do have already right-of-ways for it.
Rob Clayton, who's the tree director. Yeah, the right of way for the project, we work with the city to acquire as a contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Our request today is a motion to add funding and scope to the SR 68 Redwood Road and Aspen Hills Boulevard Saratoga project as detailed.
So moved. Thank you.
I'll second. Oh, boy.
There's a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 7A-8 is approved.
Our next item, 7A-9, is the US 89 drainage repairs at Thistle Flood area. This is a new project from our Transportation Solutions projects on $1.4 million. The scope of the US 89 drainage repairs at Thistle Flood area project will remove settlement from Thistle Creek, install an earthen dam with an impermeable liner, and add additional bank stabilization to help protect US 89 by channeling the water away from it. These actions will reduce the risk of US 89 flooding and closures of the US 89, which we've experienced this spring. So lake located here on our map.
north of Thistle. As well as a picture of the picture and included in the packet is the link to the news story. You can see the water up on the roadway. Our request today is a motion to add the US 89 drainage repairs at Thistle flood area project to the current status detail.
So moved. Thank you. It's a motion in a second. Any questions, comments? That's a lot of water. Just a recent rain at that point, that's picture taken?
This was the flooding in the spring.
Yeah. All in favor of this item number 9, say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Law,
Aye.
thank you. Any opposed?
Yes, I noticed that, yeah, I mean, you temporarily put the levee, the earthen dam along there. Last time I drove that, the water was still it's kind of seeping to the bottom a little bit, so obviously doing it right, it'll make a big difference there.
Item 7A-9 is approved. Thank you.
View 7A-10 is a Region 4 sign improvement program, fiscal year 2024, from the Transportation Solutions Program fund requested funding of $800,000. This program will improve signage in various locations throughout Region 4. It will update passing zone and passing lane advance notice signing, update speed and curve signing, upgrade grade warning signing, update and install guide and directional signing, and install signing on I-15 to deter wrong drivers. These sign additions and upgrades will provide proven countermeasures to help reduce crashes and improve safety throughout the region. Located here on our map, as you can see, we've got several different types of signing in the legend in the upper left-hand corner, and the distribution of where this project will be installing these new signs, installing or upgrading signs. Our request today is a motion to approve the Region 4 sign improvement program fiscal year 2024 as detailed.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns on this signage? Where's Commissioner Kramer to ask a question? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Item 7A-10 is approved.
7A-11 is a bridge program funding addition for the 700 West, 300 West, and tracks over I-215 bridge rehabilitation for $4 million. This project will perform bridge rehabilitation work items on 3 structures in Salt Lake County and within Region 2. We'll see the location and scope below. Over 700 West, over 215 is deck rehabilitation. Over 300 West is the deck replacement, and the UTA tracks over 215 is the superstructure and substructure repairs. Based on the complexity of the rehabilitation of the tracks bridge and the increased amount of deterioration, it is requested to add additional funding to be added to the project to address all of the rehabilitation work needed. Excuse me. Located here on our map are 3 structures. Included in the packet of pictures of these structures as well. Our request today is a motion to add funding to the 700 West, 300 West, and tracks over I-215 bridge rehabilitation project.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
It's a motion and a second on item number 11. Any questions?
This question, so is this the normal time frame that we'd expect for the rehabilitation? With the weather speeded up? I mean, we know kind of how long these things would normally last when they originally put in. Is it just within the scope of what we think is what?
Get an answer for you.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm just curious, I know we have to rehabilitate things all the time, so I guess my question was, is this within the normal lifespan? These, I'm just curious if it was prematurely wearing out or why. Did something happen with materials? I'm just curious.
We'll get that. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody from the structures division right now, but we'll.
That'd be great. Follow up. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? 7A-11 is approved.
Thank you. 7A-12 is the I-15 Bridge Preservation for West Levan. This is a funding addition and program change, moving from the bridge preservation to the bridge rehabilitation program. This project was originally scoped to include the preservation of 10 different bridges along I-15 west of Levan in Region 3. Proposed treatments consisted of structural pothole patching, hydro demolition and resurfacing, and the placement of an overlay. In recent months, the routine inspection of one of these bridges, the I-15 northbound over Deer Crossing north of Mills Junction, reduced the deck condition from fair to poor. Based on this information, it's recommended that the scope of this work for this bridge be changed from preservation to the deck replacement. As a result of the scope change, it requested that funding be added to the project and the project be moved from the preservation program to the rehabilitation and replacement program for our structural programs. Located here south of Nephi on I-15, west of Levan, and this is the structure that was moved from fair to poor condition, as well as some pictures. Our request today is a motion to add funding and change the program for the I-15 Bridge Preservation west of Levan project as detailed.
So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concern? We better fix that because I travel under that bridge 6 times a month. So please fix it quick. So all in favor of item number 12, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? 7A-12 is approved. Thank you. We also have 2 items for information.
For informational. Our next item, 7A-11, is a new project. Now, this is information only. Is the fiscal year 2024 federal discretionary grant development project. The proposed scope of the FY 2024 federal discretionary grant development project is to support the efforts of the department in responding to funding opportunities. During the 2023 period, UDOT submitted 21 discretionary grant applications. The department has received notification that 4 grants were unsuccessful. 4 grants were selected for award and 13 grant applications are still under review. The successful grant applications awarded a total of $32.1 million of federal funding. The grant applications that are still being reviewed by USDOT total $257 million of requested federal funding. One part that I'd add is not only does this support some of the efforts from within the department, but the team that is used, both UDOT staff and consultant staff, we work to support local entities on their grant applications as well.
And these require match from the state?
The projects that we submit, the majority of them do require matches. If it's a local entity that's requesting the grant, then the locals provide the match.
Thank you.
And this is information only. This project has been approved by the Deputy Director of Authority, given in the Utah Transportation Commission Policy 01-31. Our next item, 7A-14, is a project combination, information only. These projects have been previously approved through commission action, and these will just expedite the project development and completion. 2 projects in Region 4 will be combined: the SR-276, SR-95 North Wash to Glen Canyon boundary, and the SR-95. I'm going to bury this word. Marius Wash to Hike Overlook. And then in Region 3, we have US 6, I-15 to US 89, and with the US 6 improvements over Spanish Fork. And in Region 2, we have a couple of project combinations: the I-80 pavement repair project and the US 40 I-80 to SR-248 project. And then one more Region 2 another Region 2 combination: SR-150 Trail Lake Road to Mirror Lake Lodge and Mirror Lake Lodge to Sulphur. And that is it for me today. Thank you.
Wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, item B. Oh, you're gonna be doing this. Yay. Okay.
Troy Peterson, Operations Director. Lisa was not able to make it here today.
Okay.
I'm going to ask for your approval today. You'll remember yesterday we talked a little bit about the special revenue fund. And we went over the kind of expenses and revenues we have for the tolls restricted account or special revenue fund. And just one thing I'll highlight that this is a function based on a state code. Commission authority to authorize the money in that fund to be spent by the DOT for things such as construction, maintenance, right-of-way agreements and everything, and enforcement activities related to the express lanes themselves. And the action for today is to maybe one thing I'm going to step back and just remind you. Yesterday we talked about some of the things that we use the funds for. Obviously, the back office efforts, managing the system. That's probably the bulk of the funds that we spend out of this fund to keep that system running, as well as we hire some support with some contractors to help us maintain the express lanes. We also have some plans to do some structural review of some some of our sign structures as we look to move forward with the replacement of those in the future. So that's some of the costs that we're looking at need to incur with this money over the next year. And with that, any questions on the ask today?
So just take a motion, Troy, please.
So this is new for me.
Yeah, right in the bottom. You see the motion needed?
Motion to approve. Boy, I don't pay attention to much. Motion to approve the.
Come on down a bit.
A little further.
Right there, said motion needed for approval. Read that, please.
Motion to approve the action needed as detailed.
There you go. You got it.
Wow, that was so hard.
And we have a motion.
I'll second it.
There's a second.
We have to set the fees.
All in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7B is approved. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Yes.
Item 8, capacity project prioritization input list development. How am I supposed, Andrea's supposed to do that, or Tiffany, you do it?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission. Tiffany Popak is IMP Program Development Director. As we discussed, well, actually, as Andrea discussed yesterday at the staff update, the TIF and TTIF nomination window just recently closed for the 4 project types. We got 19 highway, 40 active transportation nominations, 8 transit, and 31 first mile last mile nominations. All phase 1 highways projects and phase 1 transit projects are automatically included on the list of projects to be prioritized, or the input list. The commission has the opportunity to add projects to the highway prioritization input list and the transit prioritization input list by 2 methods. First, they can add any eligible project that has been identified in the MPO or UDOT long range plan transportation plan as a phase 1 need, or they can add any eligible nomination project. These project lists are available in the commission tab on the project prioritization website. As noted, this is a draft list for consideration. At the November commission meeting, we will be asking for the finalized input lists for highway and transit. This item is for information. But again, in November, we will be coming with input lists, and then in December, we will have prioritized lists.
Any question from Tiffany? Good job.
Thanks.
Item number 9, administrative rules made of elder is going to be presented.
Well, Mike Felder, UDOT Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. We have 5 rules to go through. I'll try to go quick. I know this is a highlight for most of you, the meeting, but I'm gonna go quick. If you want your questions and comments, so please chime in as we go. All right, so the first rule, so we have 2 rules that are for your review. They're department rules, so we just ask for your review on those. And then the last 3 are commission rules, so there'll be some motions for those. So the first one is R907-80, disposition of surplus land. We had the legislature ran SB 27 during the legislature, and it requires UDOT to write a rule that allows us to transfer land to UTA, essentially it. And there are 4 scenarios where this can take place. First, if the land is part of a station area plan. Station area plans are usually around a large transit hub such as a front runner station within a half mile of the actual station. Also, when land is part of a transit-oriented development. And then when land is adjacent to a transit project built by UDOT. And then the last one, a little bit more broad, but when our executive director determines that transferring the land will benefit the state transportation system. So those are the 4 scenarios. To do a transfer, UDOT and UTA have to enter into an agreement. And then if the land ceases to be used, based on the rule that we've written, the land ceases to be used according to the agreement, the land will revert back to UDOT. There's no motion needed on this. Do you guys have any questions before I move to the next?
Is this a question jurisdiction transfer as we have done in the past? Or just
when we do jurisdictional transfers, those are, it's okay.
No, please.
Are for roads. This is for property.
Okay.
So this would be transferring the property ownership.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to the next. Here, so this is R 920-4. This is a rule also precipitated by legislative action, SB 250. The legislature has now asked UDOT to have a rule that allows a law enforcement agency to have an automatic license plate reader system to capture license plate data of vehicles driving on a state highway. Just a little background here. We've had a lot of requests on this issue, and we felt like this is clearly a policy issue that the legislature needs to determine, and so we kept saying no. And eventually, they got enough support from the legislature, and the legislature passed a law that requires us to provide a special use permit to law enforcement agencies for this purpose. So this rule has been incorporated into an existing UDOT rule, or special use permits rule. The proposed rule changes creates a framework for law enforcement agencies to follow to get a special use permit, and then subsequently get encroachment permits where needed to go and maintain and install the equipment. So again, no motion needed, but happy to take questions if you have them.
So this permit can be.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Leif, it seems like this is just about our partnership with law enforcement. Any costs associated, will those be incurred by law enforcement? Will UDOT have any costs that we have to incur at some point?
Yes, so because this is a government to government type of thing, we are not going to charge permit fees for this. So, I mean, we'll have the cost of administering the permits and so forth. On the encroachment permits, we probably will charge for that because that'll often be a contractor that does that on behalf.
But we won't have to pay for equipment or anything like that.
No, we're not.
Okay. Thank you.
In fact, we'll also, have them indemnify the department so that they assume the risk. That's all in the statute. We had them put that in there. And so, yeah, I think we're just kind of administering it and saying, okay, you can put it here. We would have to make sure, is it safe where they want to put it? We have the ability to say no if it's not safe and work with them to find a better place for the equipment and so forth. So it's.
And it's their responsibility to maintain.
Yeah.
The data.
So the data is governed by statute, and I think they have to delete it after so long, it's 90 days. I think it's where they ended up. It was 6 months it was, and then they moved, and that kind of changed a lot when the legislature in the bill passed. Yeah. So the data, we don't do anything with the data, which we're happy about. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to move to the commission rules here. So the first one is R940-2, approval of tollway development agreements. So rules are required to be reviewed at least every 5 years by the agency, and this rule is up for its 5-year review. We looked at it. We don't have any recommendations at this time on the rule. This rule is, I don't know that we've ever actually used it. So if it was to be used in the future, we probably have a little bit of idea of how we might change the rule, but we haven't had that opportunity yet. So you can see the rule text is right there. It's fairly brief, but yeah. So this would just be, so let me go to the motion there that we recommend is to move to approve the department forwarding this rule to the Office of Administrative Rules for further consideration and continuation. If the commission did nothing, then the rule would lapse and expire. We definitely recommend that you continue.
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Law, do you have a motion on that? I mean, we lost it. Item number 9-C is approved. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to 9D, which is another commission rule, R940-4, airports of regional significance. Similar situation, except for a 5-year review. We did find a few small technical changes, but let me just tell you about the rule. This rule came about back in maybe 2010, and the legislature was adopting a local option for transportation sales tax, and part of the use of that for the revenues was to use it for an airport of regional significance. And it was done so late in the session, if I recall correctly, that the tax commission's like, we don't have any idea how to define an airport of regional significance, and the legislature didn't know, and so they said, well, let's have the transportation commission do it by rule. Since then, the legislature has adopted in the tax code a definition for airport of regional significance. So I'd like to recommend to them at some point that, hey, we don't need to make this rule anymore because now you have this exact same definition in your tax code. So we'll see about doing that. But for now, it's important to just kind of re-up on this rule. And there were just some code citations that were incorrect. And then if you go further down, you can see Jim, our AG, did a great job in just kind of cleaning up a few grammatical things and conforming with our rule writing manual. So again, the substantive part of the rule stays the same. The motion here, similar to the previous motion, move to approve the department forwarding this rule with the indicated technical correction to the Office of Administrative Rules for further consideration and continuation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions, comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 9-D is approved.
Okay, and the final rule is R940-10. This is a new commission rule that we talked about in August. It is guidelines for department participation in transportation reinvestment zones. You remember the rule provides a process to receive requests for department participation in a TRZ or a transportation reinvestment zone. And if you remember, we talked about how these TRZs are pretty similar to like an RDA, a redevelopment agency, where you use your tax increment to finance improvements. In the case of the TRZ, those improvements are transportation related. So under the proposed rule, the commission would approve department participation in a TRZ, and the department would enter into a TRZ agreement with the local entity involved. We did talk about some changes we needed to make, and so let me point those changes out. The first item is here. We had Wasatch Front Regional Council suggest that, well, couldn't transit projects be part of this? And we said, yeah, that's a great idea. We talked about that in August, and you suggested that that was a good idea as well. So we added eligible transit projects to the list of possibilities. And that's what an eligible transit project here is. I have a defined term there. It's essentially a transit project that the commission can prioritize and put some TTIF money on. And so it has to do with transit projects at the state level. So the other item was when you look at the factors used to consider proposals, there is a suggestion that we ought to also consider land use. And so we threw a land use item in there so you can consider land use when determining whether or not to accept a proposal. So that is what we have on this item. And the recommended motion here is to move to approve the department forwarding this proposed rule to the Office of Administrative Rules for further consideration and public comment. Since this is a substantive change, it being a new rule, be put out for comment for the public for 30 days. And if we get comments, we might be back here to share those with you so you can decide what to do with those. If there are no comments or the comments are not substantive, we could effectuate the rule 7 days after that comment period.
So moved. It's a motion.
Second.
So the second. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 9-D is approved.
So that's all I have for you. I wish I had more, but only 5 rules.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is information items. Of course, we have commission reports, so committee reports. My left.
The corridor preservation committee did not meet. We have no items to take action on. So I would report on the trails workshops. The one I attended was effective and well handled, and incredible buy-in from local entities. People are really excited in the northern part of the state, at least, to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just report, you'll recall, Commission, that the chair and Carlos asked if with the change, if I'd represent the UDOT commission on the HTRZ zone things, and I thought, sure. I think he said, yeah, you got one of these every so often. I have 3 of them that just showed up that I'm going to, so we've got one coming up for some.
They told me it'll be once every blue moon.
Okay, it's a big movie. Summit County, we have one of those coming up. We have one for Lehigh and one for Salt Lake. So I look forward to diving right in and representing us as we understand how to support from our perspective. So
You're the man for the job.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. Commissioner Long, are you still with us?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Commissioner Menlove mentioned, and Nagi, you were there too. We attended the trails meeting, and I think our people are doing just a really great job interacting with the different constituencies that show up at the public meetings to provide their input and feedback. I also would like to commend our team on the Cedar City South Interchange project. I know none of you have felt my enthusiasm and eagerness for this project. So it was great to be in the room and see how our region project leaders and the consultants interact with the different constituencies. Here we've got a livestock trail that's involved in this project, and it's just really great to see how respectful and solution oriented our people are as we have these conversations.
Thank you. And Community Impact Board didn't have any meeting last month, but I did attend Bixby Transportation Executive Council. They talked and discussed the area growth, especially Washington County, of course, by the data provided from KMC Garden Institute. And Washington County is still one of the #1 growing areas in the state. So they're trying to find solutions, especially the water. And they also talked about the Trails Network that Stephanie Tom had already discussed in Cedar City. That's my report. Thank you. Let's see, anything from the UDON, any new things that we discussed, region directors, deputy directors? None? Well, next meeting of the commission will not be in October, so we will have the Utah Annual Conference. But we will have in November, and that is in southern Utah, so get your suntan lotions ready. You're gonna be the hurricane, they call it, not hurricane. So with that, I would like to have the last item of the agenda, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved.
Thank you. Now to thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.